Oh, you ready for me? I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're on.
Oh, we're on, baby. Oh, there I am. Oh, hi, how you doing today? So you may wonder why the show's labeled as, oh, heck, here we are again. Because, again, guests haven't showed up, music talent's not ready, and life is just bowl full of jelly. But I want to tell you, though, I work with amazing people in this place. We all volunteers here, by the way. We don't get paid for this stuff. In fact, I pay. But
that's true.
But we are here to as a community, and so my guest today is John Letts.
Hello.
I did say your last name correctly, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's just let's go.
Let's go. All right, and then and John here is quite experienced personnel. He does several shows here on RVTV.
Ramping up your English and adventures in education.
See, I even give them prompts so they could get to advertise for their own shows. And so then...
okay, I got in my plug, George. See you later. No, I'm here.
And I get up and tap dance. Okay, so anyway, no. So anyway, John told me that we're talking about, I could give you my view on a subject today is kind of like media. And what's very interesting about media is, I'm going to go back when I was a child, you usually only had 3 stations. Actually, you had 4 if you include PBS. But, you'd be watching a show, and if the president was on, he was on every channel. Forget trying to, find anything else. And you turn on PBS, and what do they got? They got classical music on. So anyway, and so, as a kid, that was media. Well, you had radio, and, it was usually, in my era, it was all top 40, which meant you got to hear the same songs, 10 songs every hour. And that was what you got on for your entertainment. So anyway, nowadays, though, we got TV, and you can have 100 channels and still have nothing else to watch that you haven't seen before anyway. And then it seems like a lot of people are going into social media. I even have been forced to, in my work, to have have Google Chats and text messages part of my work, so we could communicate throughout the campus, which drives me nuts. And then I also have a Facebook account for the show. So, and for other things, and now it's also nice to have Facebook, and I communicate with people that I grew up with across the nation, as we have been scattered to the 4 winds. So John has a particular view, I think, of media, which he's going to share at the show.
Well, I'm sure the name Walter Cronkite means something to you.
Yes.
I can remember the evening news, Walter Cronkite. Now, the thing is, because I'll go back to your 3 networks plus PBS.
Yes.
And the thing is, these organizations all built their reputations off of, you can sit down when you come home from work and you can learn the important events that happen that probably have some effect on you during this day.
Right.
Because of that commitment of, they weren't advocating for anything, they just were giving you that information. Right. And because of that, people in the United States, because of some very brave reporting that happened, were able to get a realistic view of what the Vietnam War was, not just the reel at the beginning of the movie to get you all excited about it,
Well, the thing is later on, I remember Walter Cronkite, and he was one of the most, what they say, the most trusted man in America.
He was at one time.
And so then, and eventually, TV stations, usually, if they had any commentary, it was at the very end of the news broadcast.
Oh, yeah. Remember Eric Severide?
Yeah, I do.
I used to be so scared of him because he had this really big head, and he was very not animated. So they would just have this thing, and he was more a news analyst than commentary per se.
Right.
But he had this great perspective, which I didn't understand at all as a kid. But I look at it now and I go, he didn't have an agenda either. He just wanted to put these events into a perspective.
Okay.
it's in a sense curating the news
No.
with the idea of we don't just throw things at you. We put them in some kind of a historical context or some kind of context with, okay, this is happening over here, that's happening over there. How do these things relate to us as Americans?
Right. Right.
So the reason I bring this up, this same background we've had, is we have something very different today. Now, I think that most of the journalism that's done on the main networks, we go back to CBS, NBC, ABC. These are organizations that are trying to, their focus is to get objective news out there for the public to see, and to do a lot of the same things that we're talking about, that Walter Cronkite and Chet Hunter and Brinkley and all those guys were bringing to us. What people will find if they watch a lot of this is that there does tend to be a bit of a liberal bias among the people that work for those organizations. So you have people that, I'll admit that I think most of them do. If you sat down and had a beer with them, you would find that they have a fairly liberal bias about things. But that's not what their day job is. Their day job, what they're doing for the network, is objectively reporting what's going on. That's what they're trying to do. That's very different from a network that wasn't around when we were kids, and that's Fox. I'll just say it. and they have never attempted to do objective news. Their whole thing is, we do have an agenda, a very conservative, I think conservative is probably too, I'll say right-wing agenda, that they really try to push, and everything goes through that lens. Now, obviously, the people that are doing that are not going to be people with a liberal bias. But I guess my point is, they're not people with a conservative bias trying to do objective news.
Right.
They are people with a conservative bias doing an agenda that is taking the country away from democracy.
Right.
And that is the agenda that they're working for. The scary thing is that is what we're finding out more and more. These things have come out this week. That is what is driving the decisions made in the White House. Because the president watches Fox, and that's his worldview. When his people come in, people who are experts in diplomacy, defense, what have you, when they come in and make their reports to the president, he generally ignores them, especially if they don't agree with what he sees on Fox.
Right.
And generally, they're not going to agree with what's on Fox, because Fox is a made-up world. And they have this world that people see the real world through their lens. And then when anything comes up from reality that doesn't agree with that worldview that they've taken on, and I've seen this in many people, I always say they've gone to the dark side when they start watching Fox, because if you confront them with reality, their mind goes, well, that's not what Fox says, so it must not be true.
That's the part that's scary, is when you think.
Yeah.
Listen, first off, I mostly agree with you. The thing is, and I think some of the thing is I think liberal and conservative terms nowadays are different from what we used to call conservative and liberal in the past.
True enough, yeah.
I mean, I consider myself more of a conservative than I do a liberal, but I don't. I don't agree. When I used to watch. Rush Limbaugh used to have a TV show.
I remember that, yeah.
And he was actually funny, and I would say I could agree with some of the things he was saying at the time. Now I can't listen to the guy, because it's like you say, it's like he parrots some kind of thinking that is so far gone from me then I'm going, that's not the conservatism that I grew up with, or,
Yeah.
or what I mean, my father, he was a Democrat, but he was pretty conservative,
Mm-hmm.
you know. When you think of his views on certain social issues and stuff like that. In fact, I had my brother used to yell at me because I used to be a registered Republican. And he said, "Why are you voting for a Republican? They're only for the rich." I said, "Well, there's some aspects of the Republican Party which they said they valued, and that's what I valued."
Mm-hmm.
And since then, actually, both he and I came to a point where he says, "I'm no longer a Democrat or Democrat." He says, "I'm more of a constitutionalist." I said, "Yeah, actually, I'm pretty much in the same boat with you on that one too."
Well, you know what happened to me, George?
Uh-huh.
I am very middle of the road. I'm very moderate.
I would throw
I'm
middle
very
too.
much a moderate. But the thing is, I didn't change. But because of all this stuff, this movement with Rush Limbaugh and with Fox News and
Yeah.
everything, all of a sudden I'm on the left fringe,
You're-
and
yeah,
I
you're-
haven't
you're-
changed at all.
You're getting kicked over, and you're going, "What happened?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, you know, I'm basically, personally, I'm fiscally conservative. I don't believe in spending money you don't have. That's a conservative value.
Yeah, right.
I grew up with conservatives, and I heard this many, many times growing up, is their idea, the conservatives that I knew, they said, you know what? You should never get in a war that's not defending the United States directly.
There you go.
And the second part of that, but if someone has gotten you in this war, and we're thinking Vietnam here,
Right.
if someone has gotten you in this war, you win that war.
Yes.
You don't walk away until that war you get unconditional surrender from whoever it is you're fighting.
Right.
Well, then the election of 2000 happened. Next thing you know, we're in Iraq, which was not a direct threat to the United States.
No.
We were sending troops over there. Then they had a big celebration that we had won, mission accomplished, and we didn't even have control, you know. So it's like everything that I learned from conservatives became not okay with conservatives, because they were all like, you know, well, we're in this war, let's stay in it a little bit longer, and we're still in that war. You know, that was not the kind of conservative talk that I got when I grew up.
Right. And see, and that was very interesting too, because George H.W. Bush, his quote why he didn't go after Saddam in the Desert Storm was, he says it was a thing that there was no way to get out.
Yeah.
He said, we accomplished the mission of where, you know, Kuwait came in, they asked us for help, we did it, we got out. Saddam was still there, and we just left that alone because we just didn't want to. There was no way to get out, and I guess you would think he'd be telling his son George.
I don't think W listened to his dad.
No. Well, obviously, because if George was paying attention, even read on his books on what his father read. And then again, you know, George W. Bush was not. He was more. I'd say he was heavily influenced by Dick Cheney.
Oh yeah.
And Rumsfeld. And in fact, you know,
do you always make understatements like that? George?
Well, I just imagine that George W. Bush is kind of like sitting on Dick Cheney's lap, and Dick Cheney's. And George W. is going, thanks for the prostate check. No?
Whoa, I didn't say that. He did.
But I mean, it's like he was being a puppet.
Yeah.
For Dick Cheney, and I was going, it's just I'm just going that was yes, and now we can't get out. This is like every time they say, oh well, because we pulled out, now we got ISIS coming in. It seems like it just morphs on into to where we are fighting an enemy that changes, and we can't seem to get our way out of the what we are.
When we got into that,
Yeah.
I forget who it was, but they said, "Can you spell quagmire?" Because that.
Oh, I remember that
was
word. I
Vietnam.
remember, yeah, it's quagmire. Yeah.
Well, to redirect a little bit to the media.
Okay, go back.
Okay.
Go ahead. Go back.
That's all right. That's all right. but call it the mainstream media.
Okay.
They're not blameless.
Mm.
They are not blameless. This week, a tremendous amount of time was used on R. Kelly. I mean,
Oh.
tremendous amount of time, because Gayle King had that interview with him, and he went all crazy on her. And yeah, it's great for her career that they show her being so calm when he's so not calm. But think of these things, that of all the things that are going on that should have been reported instead of all this big hoopla. You know, there's nothing wrong with a little story about R. Kelly, but my gosh, the environmental laws have been changed and are still being changed. So where are the reporters out there showing the dirty water, showing the dirty air?
Right.
That's what we need to know, not what some celebrity is doing. And see, that's what the media has been guilty of for a long time. They want whatever's the most flashy. They want whatever's going to get them the most ratings.
If it bleeds, it leads type of thing.
That's it. And so they're not really focused in the way that, we started with Walter Cronkite, that they used to be focused on, this is news, this, if you want to read the gossip columns, pick up the New York Times and read the gossip columns, but we report news.
Right. And now you have to read the newspaper to even get an idea what's happening just in your area.
Yeah, and some newspapers have picked up most of the mantle. You have the Washington Post, New York Times, the LA Times. They've kind of woke up, and they're doing more real journalism. And the networks, some of the people are doing really good journalism, but then they're having people make these decisions of, oh, let's devote 15 minutes to this interview with this singer. What kind of things are we not looking at? I mean, I want Amy Goodman to come be their news director or their assignment editor, the Democracy Now! Person, because she at least is focused on, these are things that have to do with democracy. And I know the United States isn't a democracy. It never has been. It's a constitutional republic. Right. But there's always been a big part of who we are that has democratic, lowercase d, right. In other words, democracy type of values.
Right.
That what the people feel and want to do matters.
Right.
And what we have now is the unraveling of that and the trying to put in barriers. Talk about barriers and walls. The real wall they're putting up is the wall that people will not be able to express their common desire for things in a democratic way, because there'll be walls there to cut them off at every time. Right. Now, we have walls in the Constitution to keep populism from going berserk.
Right.
You have the Senate. That's supposed to be the more deliberative. In the past, the governors assign the senators. They're there for 6 years, so they're not as pushed around by the political winds. You have the electoral college.
Right.
All that. I mean, if not, we would be talking about Hillary Clinton as our president. So you have those kind of safeguards, but they want to absolutely cut off, and the reason they want to cut off any kind of democracy going on is the movement that's going on now, that Rush Limbaugh's behind, Fox is behind, all of that. They feel that people with great wealth should not ever be forced to give up any of their wealth for the common good.
That's it.
The way they see it, that's my money. If you want to go spend your money on something, spend your money on it. But you have no right to take my money for something that's for the common good.
Right.
That is what is driving all this bizarre kind of stuff that we're seeing, that all the tweets and all that other stuff. They found somebody who will get that job done for them.
That's right. I mean, and I'm going to make another point after this one, but the thing was, when they saw, when Trump was first being hired, he was venting. They were venting him for Republican. a lot of Republicans were speaking out against him.
Yeah.
They'd say, why is this guy even thinking being in here? It wasn't until that he probably made the bargain with people in the back room saying, whatever you bring in front of me, I'll sign when it comes to money. That's when the Republican Party said, okay, great, we'll work with you as long as you're going to give us the tax cuts and everything else that the rich want.
He delivers.
And he delivered.
Yeah.
That campaign promise that he didn't promise American people, but what he promised the people in the back room, he delivered.
Yeah.
And so I agree with that. And the other thing is I think we're building up a youth that's not getting, doesn't understand about Walter Cronkite, doesn't understand what we grew up with or the values that we grew up with. Because if you look at some of the history books, I heard that they don't talk much about it. They may give a paragraph to George Washington,
Yeah.
but they'll spend a whole page talking about Marilyn Monroe and her impact on her time. So we're feeding our youth, our students, garbage in the lower cases. They're not learning about history and what you're going to live through. People have already lived through the past in other countries is now happening in America in this time.
And I don't know if you realize, I'm a retired school teacher.
Yeah, I did
in elementary school. And the thing is, the American history, any of the social studies, took a very back burner to what they called Reading First, which was a federal program. I have heard principals, and I can say this honestly, it's the truth. I have heard principals tell their staff, don't worry if you don't have time for social studies. Just don't even worry about doing it. Look at where we are today, where people don't understand how the government's set up to work, so they have nothing to compare what's going on today with the way that the Constitution set up things to work. And so you have this inability to hold the government accountable because the government's not something people understand because they never. Now, I think in Trump's time, I always tell people who will listen to me, he either skipped class or went to sleep during history, and you can see it in the things he says. He didn't learn history. He didn't learn civics. He has no interest in those things.
He has a hard time relating to people that are not have the same opinion as he has too.
Oh, really?
Shocked I am.
But the other thing, George, that really concerns me is this attack on the media.
Right.
It's truly, and to use his words, which he usually is wrong when he says it, it's unprecedented. I remember Spiro Agnew railing against the media because he didn't like the way he was treated by them. But this sustained attack, that is what dictators do when they want to take over a country.
Right.
The first ones they go after is the independent media. And this has been going on since even before he was elected. Yeah. And the idea of bringing these people together and then pointing up at the media and saying, these guys are awful, these guys are the enemies of the people, these guys are need to be, I don't think he's ever said eliminated, but basically they're up there shaking their hand, their fists at the media. And we both know that he wouldn't even be president if the media wasn't up there covering his rallies.
I mean, you can't get away from not hearing anything about Trump.
No, you can't. Someone even suggested you have a non-Trump day. Like Tuesday is a non-Trump day. We don't say anything about Trump. Hasn't happened.
It hasn't happened. And just the other part about our government is when the president picks on the enforcement agents, the agencies that are trying to secure our borders, secure our people, and he says, I'll take the words of dictators and tyrants over my own people. So that,
it's enough to scare you.
It's scary because what are you going to bring in your own stormtroopers now? People just aligned to you, not the FBI or the CIA or NSA, Anyway, we have a few minutes left.
Okay.
But I think it was 3. So, yeah. So, do you have anything else you want to add? Before we go any farther, though, I wanted, because in the past I didn't mention it. This set was put up by Dorothy Nino.
Oh, and what a beautiful job she does.
She did a great job, and I do appreciate she doing that type of thing. And
I think she got an award this last
oh,
year.
that's right. Was it
set
2019 for most decorative sets?
Yeah, yeah.
Proof positive right here.
And she earned it, I think.
I think she definitely does. And then thank you, John, because John has done director for my show and stuff in the past.
Glad to do it, George.
That's I do appreciate it. Thank you again, even for sitting in the hot seat.
Yeah, it is kind of warm in here.
So, anything else? Anything else you want to point out before we zoom out of here?
Yeah, the elevator speech is
okay.
This is so hard to say. Use a scientific mind when it comes to the media as well. Where is the evidence for what they're saying? Look at the evidence behind what they're saying. If we're already up to the 10th floor, so I can't talk anymore, the elevator speech. Right. But by all means, be skeptical, use higher level thinking skills, and always ask yourself, where is the evidence for that? Whether it's from Fox News, whether it's from Donald Trump, whether it's from Rush Limbaugh, where's the evidence for that?
Right. So just a quick note, I've been called a postmodernist in the way I think, because I quoted once in one of my classes, I was talking that I used to be like, I believe in Solomon. Solomon used to listen to both sides of the story and then make his decision there. A lot of people nowadays listen to just one side and have made their decision and won't change whatsoever, even when they're hit blindsided by the truth.
Yeah.
That this is actually counteracting. I admit I have to stand up and say once in a while, I stand corrected. I perceived that wrong, and stuff like that. And I guess we're coming close to 30 seconds or something like that. You wrap it up. Anyway, this is Uncle Joe's Trailer Park. Thank you again.
You bet.
John Letts is here.